Welcome back. It's No Brush Required, episode 63, I think. I always forget to look at that little thing that we what episode number we're on, but hey, it doesn't really matter, does it? We're getting up there. Hi.
63.
3.
63. Hey, this show is older than I am now.
It's true. And next show, we'll have to play the song When I'm 64.
Yes, we will. Do we know how to do that? Oh, no, I don't think I know how to do that. You can sing it.
I think we should do that for our next little promo. We'll set it to that music, okay? I'll remind you.
That I can do. That I can do. I can't do that in the show, but I can do it on the poster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your noise finished.
Yes. Yes. I was fully prepared to have to leave my little square for a few minutes, but the guys just came. They serviced the two heat exchange units and vacuumed out on the inside. The cats are nowhere to be seen.
Okay.
So I think they've gone into hiding. The only noise I have is the nonstop construction sound from outside.
Okay. We can't hear it. I can't hear it. So
good. Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. We should say this is No Brush Required.
Oh, yeah.
This is a weekly Instagram live show that myself, Tamara Grand, and Barbara Reed do, and we invite guests on, and you guys watch and chat with us, and we've been doing this for 63 episodes, but actually
more.
Coming up on, I know, and coming up on 2 years.
Good God.
I know.
Because I keep thinking, it was a few months ago. We started this. You're right. It is coming up on 2 years.
It is. And it's been a great 2 years. Hey, I see Bonnie's here, Danielle's here, Patricia's here. We have a guest for you guys today that we're really excited to chat with. And I'm kind of surprised that we don't know her already. We haven't, there's been some overlap. There's a bunch of different areas of overlap. She's a British Columbian artist. She took a painting course, an online painting course with Rob Zott at the same time that you and I did, I believe.
I didn't realize it was the same time, but that's fair. Yeah.
I think so. And she has shown at the Gallery George, which is the place that I'm part of the online gallery. She knows people that I know. So it's just kind of crazy. And I'm going to introduce her, and I'm going to say her last name phonetically. So hopefully I get it right.
I can't help you there. I can't help you there.
Well, she's an artist, an art educator, a yogi. She teaches yoga classes. She teaches in-person art and yoga classes in Spain, Morocco.
Far away.
Far away.
And
we got to get on that.
Island, she's got one coming up.
She's got one coming up at Salt Spring Island. So I'm going to introduce her. Her name's Marlene. Sorry, Marlene. I was worried about your last name, Marlene Lowden. And if I get the pronunciation of your last name wrong, you feel free to correct me, because people pronounce my name wrong all the time too. So, Marlene.
Hi, good
morning.
Good morning. What an intro. I feel like a superstar. And it is funny that we don't know each other, because we are just across the water. I'm on the Sunshine Coast, so I'm a little bit more recluse.
Yes.
I'm not in the big city as often, but it is funny we've passed, just didn't realize we're in the same building or whatever.
We did go to the Sunshine Coast last summer. We did a little holiday up just past Gibson's. We rented an Airbnb on a place across from Half Moon Bay that was up in the bush. There was nothing there. And it was wonderful. But every time we wanted to go out to dinner, we had to drive for 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I'm located right where the ferry docks. So so people think we're an island. You probably see those things when you come to Sunshine Coast. We're not an island, but we are. The Howe Sound is so deep. If you keep going, you're going up to Squamish and then hit Whistler. There's just no road access to us. So you come on, via ferry, or you leave up to the north Sunshine Coast, which is Powell River, via ferry as well. So it's great because we're kind of rural. I'm just in the forest this morning with my dog, and then we also get to hop on, on the ferry and come over to the city and have the city vibe. So It's
It is.
a
And you
mecca
guys
for
do a
artists
big
here.
weekend
Like,
crawl in October,
just,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, in October. Yeah, I'm on the board for that, and it's huge. People come from all over. It's actually, it kind of launched my art career in a way. Like, it kind of nudged me, to show. So I'm on the board to volunteer for that because I feel really passionate about it. And it's a very supportive art community. Like, I saw some names come through that are joining us today. And it's like, if there's an opening here, the artists all come out and support each other.
That's
And
great.
it's really
We've
fabulous.
had a
Well,
few people
Yeah.
say that you
Yeah.
guys are
Yeah.
sisters.
So,
we're not.
I know.
well, you need to come visit. You need to come visit next time you get on the Sunshine Coast. We've got a lovely deck, and bring your hiking boots, and we'll go for a little stroll. But yeah, I feel very, very blessed, to be here. Sometimes I get FOMO with the city, or I get like a little jealous because, of all the fun things that are going on. But my day-to-day life is, well, we're all kind of introvert extroverts, right? So this is a perfect place for an introvert because I basically hide in my basement down here as my studio and work away and not see people for
Yeah.
days and days.
Yes,
And
you
that
do.
Absolutely.
we kind of need that, right?
Um,
Need the privacy.
Yeah, as
well,
artists.
we have so many
Yeah.
things we wanted to talk to you about, and
Yeah.
we tend to do this as a rather
Yeah.
informal, meandering sort of chat. So I just listened to the most wonderful interview that you did with Thrive, a little talk that you did for Thrive that, it's on
Oh.
it's on your website, and I'll link it
Oh
up because
yeah.
people should
Okay.
listen
Yeah.
to it. Especially if they want to hear a bear
Okay.
story. There's a great bear
Okay.
story.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that was we had to do it really fast and was like X amount of
Oh,
slides.
The
It's
season
almost
one.
like what do you call
the
those?
one slide a minute
I'm going to
thing, right?
mispronounce it. What is it? Yeah, yeah. It was
Fun.
kind of
Well,
like that.
but we
Yeah,
usually
it was kind of
start
like that.
because
Yeah,
our audience
yeah,
may not know you. Your audience knows you; they don't know us. But that's so we usually
yeah.
start by just asking you to give us a quick little, background. Where did you start, art-wise? What are the things that are relevant? You can talk about Bob Ross if you want. You can talk
Oh,
about heavy metal.
Yeah,
You can talk about.
totally talk about Bob Ross. Yeah, I'll totally talk about Bob Ross. So that's basically my dad and I, when I was a teenager, we started, him and I started painting with Bob, and we had a VHS machine, and we would record the
really?
episodes of The Joy of Painting because
Yeah.
Yeah.
he would go way too fast for us, right? Like, we could not do 22-minute scene, so we had to hit pause a lot. And I still have up on my wall, I still have the door skin palette that my dad made for me, and it was, it was pretty cool that my dad gave me like the same expensive
Yeah.
oil paint and treated me, you know what I mean? And so why do I paint in oil? It doesn't really make sense as an abstract artist a lot of the times because it takes so long to dry. But I have such a connection to that medium, and I think it really comes back to that time of just, it's just like that magic of putting colors together and making new colors, and then taking your little knife and, making a tree or a mountain or a bunny or whatever show up. And I think that even though I don't paint that way anymore, that feeling of kind of making my own world up, and that mystery and that kind of that still sticks with me. And that's from my dad and from Bob. And also happy accidents, man. We all have to lean into happy accidents, or where are we going to be, right? We have to lean into that. And I think that's one of probably the most important, things
Good
I
old
learned
Bob.
from Bob. Yeah. So, but I didn't go into art. I didn't even think about going into art, to tell you the truth, even though there were artists around me. It just didn't come up as an idea of a career. But we had an amazing television program in our high school, and that was a really, like,
Right.
I love photography. I love the arts, obviously, and I'm an '80s girl, right? So it's MTV, Much Music, all that stuff. I mean, I spent hours watching that stuff. So the opportunity to actually shoot and edit was just super alluring, and yeah. So I went into television. I went to BCIT, right? Into broadcast television, and got a job right out of school at CBC. It was just a dream. Yeah, I made a ton of money. Have never made that kind of money again. I was, no kids, just, yeah, making lots of money, and I had a really great time. There were some really amazing women. There were a lot of women in tech. I was above the line as well. Although I think I was probably a better tech, but the equipment was huge. So the cameras were massive. And at the time we had to, like, it was basically like wearing a VSH machine on your hip, right? Along with the camera. So they were big
So you
units. And so
were
above the
filming?
line kind of made a bit more
Were you
sense
filming
for
or?
me. But no, I was like in production management, because they're just, I think I knew one female audio tech, but everybody, most of the techs were men. There were female directors and producers who I got to know, which was really great. So it was wonderful. But I'm a small town girl. I grew up here. My dad grew up here. My grandmother grew up here, which is very unusual for a Canadian, at least a Caucasian or white Canadian. Obviously, the First Nations people have been here way longer than we can even probably know. And so, fortunately, unfortunately, my great grandparents settled here when the BC government was kind of just carving up the land. And I didn't know any of that stuff, obviously, when I was growing up, but that's sort of part of. So we're on Squamish territory here and Sechelt territory, up the way, which I feel very privileged to have been living on, working on, playing on, grew up on. Magical place. And so when I knew I was going to have kids and things like that, I knew I wanted to be a mom. I just couldn't see raising them in the city. And at the time, the television industry was not going to be a small town job. So I actually had a really great gig where I could work, like, sort of basically April to September, make a ton of cash. And then I started going back to school to maybe be a high school teacher. Or something like that, because I've got teaching in my blood, or I was just trying to think of some way. And then, but on the side, I always did art. Like, I always, if there was community college courses and things like that, I always looked for art, to kind of fuel me. That was my special thing to sort of do. And I was doing more realistic painting and that kind of thing. And then, basically, a long story short, my marriage, I broke up. My girls were 2 and 5. I was trying to figure out, I was living here on the Sunshine Coast, trying to figure out my new path, my new way. And after kind of like coming up for air and figuring things out, I kind of asked myself, what am I missing? Like, this is an opportunity for me to sort of start over with my little girls here. What do I need? And it was art with a big capital A. I didn't have any money, so I was, I was working part-time, and so I was just using dollar store supplies and things like that. But it was so evident and so obvious that was something that I needed to continue to have in my life. I still wasn't thinking making an art career or any of those things. It was just, I need this to be who I am, and to be the best mom I can be, or whatever. So, so the girls and I just, painted along with, like I said, dollar store art supplies. And then I met my future, or my husband. And this is really romantic. This is such a romantic story, you guys. So, it was my first birthday. We were together, and we went into the city for a night and like a date day, and he took me to Opus. So those of you from back east, art supply store, right? And he knew me so well. And he basically just said, I want you to buy things for your birthday. And and this was like huge for me. Brand new canvases. I bought like these big tubs of, acrylic paint. But I mean, compared to the dollar store stuff, right? It was just like, I just came home with huge brushes. It was amazing. It was such a beautiful gift. He knew and he's still to this day, like, I'm going to get all teary-eyed, but I mean, we're both self-employed, and we're always doing this, juggling all kinds of things, including, like we were talking about earlier, like the retreats. But he's just been so supportive, even when I am like, I'm done. I'm throwing in the towel. That's it. I'm going to go find a proper job, all those kinds of things. Yeah, he's always had my back.
Yeah.
It's just been,
The
yeah,
hearts
there
are,
goes a heart. I just saw a heart go up, and that's exactly it. It just, having someone that he maybe doesn't understand sometimes the things I'm doing down here, but he understands that, it's needed. It's
Super
who I
lovely.
am. So
important.
yeah.
Super important.
Yeah. Yeah, it is to have those people in your life that get you, because
Yeah.
this is not an easy
A
gig,
lot
right?
of head games, right? Especially if you're working on your own, you go through these like, wow, really productive, everything is great. And then I always remind myself when that's happening, the next part is going to be this. So just get ready for it before it goes up again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so true, Barbara.
it is.
It's such a roller coaster, and as
Mm-hmm.
long as you know you're on the
Mm-hmm.
roller coaster, if you
Yeah,
don't know you're on the roller coaster, then you're in trouble. But if you
yeah.
recognize that you're actually on this roller
Then
coaster
it's
and it's going to get
yeah.
better,
And
or
you're
it's,
choosing.
then
I often remind
you can
myself, you
manage it.
chose this. This is,
Yeah, what was
you have to,
making you
you
do
have to,
it?
Yes. Yeah. What kind of weirdos are we? Like, seriously,
Yeah.
we're doing this to ourselves, right? But I wouldn't have it any other way. I can't imagine my life without art. I don't know how you guys would feel about it. I mean, it would
well,
Yeah.
for me, it was a
yeah,
second
it
lease on
is who
life.
we
Really,
are.
I didn't
Yes.
start making art until I was in my late 40s. And I'm a scientist by training.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Right.
yeah.
That's right.
So
That's
yeah,
right. I
it's
remember
just,
hearing that.
and it
Yeah.
can, you can find it at any age. You can find something you're
Yep.
passionate about at any age, but you have to be open to it,
Oh,
and you have to be willing to
absolutely.
say, yeah, I'm going to take this on, even though it's going to suck a lot of the time.
I know. I teach, and well, I kind of call it teaching because that makes sense, but I don't
Mhm.
pretend to
Yeah.
teach people how to paint. I just share what I know and share everything that I have. Here you go. This is where I've gotten from A to B. Take it. Let's run with it. And I've had people of all ages taking the courses, and it's so cool to see. I've seen, especially women in their late 70s, early 80s, find a new version of themselves. Like, it's like this big door just gets opened, for them, and it's just
Yeah.
so exciting
I bet.
to see that,
Well,
for
you're
sure.
a yoga
Yeah,
instructor though
but
too, right? So you teach
yeah,
yoga,
but
and I was just curious, talk about how those things are related, because the philosophies of yoga could really help a lot of create.
yeah, and that's kind of how I ended up kind of teaching, actually, is because, yeah, I started my yoga practice about the same time that I started to sort of discover more of an abstract voice, because up until that point in my life, I'd been pretty much just painting, the landscape, trees, or whatever. But with my marriage falling apart and life being kind of all over the place, I started to lean more into, give myself freedom to lean into more, I would call them sort of like dreamscape kind of paintings. They were more like, paintings of myself, or like, they're not something I'm going to hang on a wall, but they're very dear to me, and I see them every once in a while, and it just reminds me of, the struggle and all the kinds of things, and they were really important for me to do. I was a
Oh,
big
yeah.
fan of Marc
Yeah.
Chagall as a teenager. I found Marc Chagall, and so, there was some sort of, I never thought I could ever do something like Marc at all. But that sort of,
Yes.
yeah, dreamscape kind of world. And that's when I started practicing yoga too, was at the same time. I remember my girlfriend was, it was really new, and here on the Sunshine Coast anyways. And so she was trying to draw little stick figures for me to follow, along with, because there weren't any classes or anything like that. And then I'm typical me, like when I fall in love with something, it's like I go for it. So even though I have the tightest hamstrings, I am like, I ended up taking my teacher training at 40, because it had made such a huge impact on my life,
No.
not about how flexible I am or how strong I am. It's
Yeah.
really about the letting go of outcome. That's really what the main teaching of yoga is. And it's for an abstract painter, any artist, to approach the project without kind of having it all figured out. That's the space where magic happens, right? And so you're right, those two just hand in hand. And so I tried to bring those into my teachings as well. Like people don't even really realize I'm leaning into the yoga philosophy when I'm teaching, but that's
and it's where
basically
you're
what I'm
at on
bringing
that
into,
day.
right?
You know, like, you know, the whole thing about yoga
Absolutely.
is people see these photos on Instagram of somebody's got their leg up over their head and it's a pose. That's not yoga, right? So your tight hamstrings, that's
No.
life. And so that's what you work
Oh,
with.
oh my God. That's exactly it, because you can't push,
No.
you can't fake it with yoga, right? Okay, with running, I've run before where you end up running and you end up puking, like, but you can just keep going, right? Like you can just keep willing yourself to go, but you cannot
This
make
will never
your
happen.
leg go over your
On this
head.
body. No.
You will break. So there's a lot of like putting the ego aside and a lot of like recognizing this is where I'm at right now and like leaning into that and appreciating that. And that's the same with our art practice too, right? Like, the ugly painting stage or whatever, it's like, okay, chill out. It's just a part of it right now. It's not, it's just an expression and we'll be back tomorrow. Like, so they're definitely tied together. And then that's how I started sort of teaching, is because someone asked me to do yoga and kind of like mark making, like art at the same time. So I started with these little daytime ones where I'd have people come do some yoga and then we'd make some marks on the canvas and my husband would make them lunch and and right, it was really fun. And then it kind of evolved into we partnered up with amazing painter, another Marlene, she's Dutch, Vermeulen, and her husband Nick, and they we did 4 retreats in Spain with them before COVID, and that was just a life-altering experience for all 4 of us, and I'm pretty darn sure for many of the people who came. In fact, a lot of people came multiple times. It was just a magical experience. So and I brought the yoga with me, and we actually, people probably don't realize it, but we built the whole curriculum around the 7 chakras, because they're sort of like key ideas of how we kind of move creatively, from the foundation through to the crown chakra. It sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's not. It all kind of lines up. And they're philosophies that have been around for way longer than we even know. So I mean, they're just part of the human experience, right? So so then we're excited because we're taking a group now on our, my husband and I are, Patrick, we're taking a group to Morocco in September. So we have, 14 painters coming with us to Marrakesh, and then we're driving through the Atlas Mountains and hanging out in a beautiful Casbah that has an art studio for 5 or 6 days. And it's just going to be
left? Can people
amazing.
Go or is it
No, there's no spaces on that one, but I am definitely putting I definitely have a wait list, and so if people want to talk to me about it, they just give me a holler, and I'll put you on the wait list, and then or just give you information about it, because we're hoping this is the beginning of something.
At Salt Spring this weekend. And I see there was still
I'm all packed up here. I do have a space for that. I had a Happy Life. One of my participants has a Happy Life change that came about last minute, so I do have a space if anybody wants to join me on Friday.
Which is the most amazing place.
Oh, I haven't been there since I was a kid, so I'm excited. And it was actually one of our Spain alumni that invited me. She went to Spain. She's like, "Will you come to Salt Spring and teach one day?" And I'm like, let's just do it. So
if my sister's on, if Marty's on this call, I don't know if you are, Marty, but my memory, we went to Salt Spring Island and, for a few days, and like we had some really fun times. But you know what I remember a lot is the banana slugs. Have you heard about the banana slugs on Salt Spring Island? Do you have
I live on the West Coast.
They are like I can't even make my hands as they're huge.
I know. I know. All my our garden is basically up on big, huge, like big tables up off the ground. It still doesn't stop them, but it slows them down. And then we have a big fence all around it because we have deer, raccoons, black bear, you know, all those things that like to eat
Oh,
your vegetables. But
Yeah.
the slugs
Danielle,
yeah.
they're really, and they kept ducks at this place that we stayed at because the ducks eat
Oh
them.
yeah.
yeah.
And they
Eat
said to us, do
them.
not
Yeah.
walk barefoot
Yeah, I don't have ducks.
on the grass. And then you could look out and you could see like it was just like alive. These yellow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we don't have that. They're usually in the forest here. They're the big ones are usually
There's
in the
Marty.
forest. They're not usually in our yard.
Spring Island,
So
but it's
yeah.
gigantic.
There
Like
they are.
freakish.
Yeah.
Like you could keep them as pets.
Yeah. Well, everything
Yes,
here on the
trees.
West Coast is
There's
big, right? The
signs.
trees are big, the ferns are big. Like it's just how my work is so influenced by the ocean and the forest because you can't not. Like I so appreciate your straight lines, and I do some straight lines in my work too, but most of my work has got some bend or curve, or if the straight lines, it's broken because it'll be like the perfect fern that all of a sudden, you know, is snapped because everything here is organic shape and,
Marlene,
and huge.
When you travel other places,
you know,
I do have this. I always have the sense now. I'm not from here, but I've lived in Vancouver since I was 25. And anytime I travel somewhere else in the world where there's no ocean and there's no mountains, I feel a little panicky and a little claustrophobic. It's a very strange feeling because, and then you come back and, you know, the plane flies in and you're driving up Canby Street and you see the North Shore Mountains and you see the ocean. And I just get this sense of, I can breathe again. Yeah.
Yeah. I do. I don't get panicky, but I definitely appreciate coming home because it's so green here and so lush. And like you say, we've got the mountains right here and the forest and so the ocean at our feet. I mean, we're just so blessed. But I love exploring and traveling. I love soaking up everything that's just sort of strange and new to me. So I try to be where I am, you know, and then, but I do definitely, when we get on that ferry, for us, it's the ferry tomorrow. Like when we get on that ferry, it's like, oh, the shoulders come down a couple inches, you know, and even though the ferry can be a bit of a hassle, I know it's just that trip home.
The thing is, you always tell what direction is north. I go to places that don't have mountains and oceans, and I'm always turning around and not getting lost. Where's north? Which way are we going?
Yeah, well, my husband always say that's part of the charm of us traveling is we tend to get lost, and that's kind of part of it too, right? He's way more adventurous than me. I'm definitely more of a homebody than he is, so I'm really grateful for that because we've traveled to some really interesting places because he's always on the lookout for that's like his fuel, you know, is, you know, he grew up kind of in different places, and so so for him, going exploring.
I would think Morocco. Have you been to Morocco before?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah. We were there last fall to kind of scope out research. Got to do research, you know, to scope out where we're going to take everybody. And we have a person that's a wonderful woman there who's been running retreats from her Casbah. So she's got it all kind of dialed in. Michelle Fletcher. If you guys want to follow her, oh my goodness. Yeah, I knew her from the Sunshine Coast, and she's fallen in love with a Moroccan, and it's his grandfather's property on the last town at the edge of the desert. You know, in this part of the desert, from a day's drive from Marrakesh. So they are building this beautiful. They're always working on it. This beautiful Casbah. And because she's an artist at heart, she's built the studio. So she's been welcoming all kinds of, you know, people like myself to come and facilitate. And then they have the beautiful platform areas for yoga. I mean, it's just, it's simple living. Like you know, when when the wind comes up, they call it desert spice. So your food gets, you know, a little gritty. It's not like it's 5-star. It's but it's just it's just real and authentic, and the people who are there.
You got to do
really
this annually because I think tomorrow we need to add
I'm
it to our
excited.
list.
Although every
Absolutely, you
time you
guys, we
say the
have so
word
much fun.
Casbah, all I can think of is the Clash song.
Oh,
Speaking of 80s.
Well, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, my husband and I are total music geeks too,
Okay,
so
I
we'll have
I've
some
got
pretty
the
good
Marrakesh
playlists. Yeah,
song
that'll be
of
on it
Crosby,
too.
Stills
Yeah.
and Nash in my
okay,
head.
all right, different era.
Marrakesh. Like that's in
Yeah.
my head now. The Casbah. Yeah.
Your your comment about the 80s
Yeah.
though, we just
Yeah.
saw the new Nike, the new Air movie.
Oh,
And the whole,
good.
so it's about Michael Jordan, Nike,
Oh.
but your comment about being an 80s girl, the whole intro sequence video montage is all clips of things and songs from like there's the Rubik's Cube, there's MTV, it's all 90s throwbacks or 80s throwbacks. And my husband and I are watching
Yeah,
it, and he's
that's
8 years older
hilarious.
than me and he didn't get any of it.
No, because he's like my generation.
I know.
Although I
Right.
would still get
You
it.
would
But
get it.
Jason
Yeah.
Bateman's hair in the pictures, I
Yeah.
figured said it all
Anyways,
about what
if
that movie
you
is.
want to have a lovely little throwback to the 80s, you have to watch
I
that
will.
movie. And
We'll watch
the
that.
opening couple minutes montage is phenomenal.
Okay. Well, I have one for you. It was done. I don't know when it was done. It was probably done in the 90s, but it's. I think he's actually a Canadian anthropologist, and it's called Heavy Metal: A Headbanger's Journey. So that because my husband and I were total metalheads. So the opening montage of that just cracks us up because it's all these kids
Oh.
waiting outside of the Judas Priest concert, and the outfits and the hairdo, and we
Was
look
that
at it and
you?
we're like, oh my gosh,
You're
like that
kidding.
was so us. Yes. And we didn't know each other. We were across the country from each other, but when we first started dating, we realized we were both metalheads when we were kids, and that we would have had matching mullets, like absolutely. So yeah, it's an old one. It's basically about the history of heavy metal, like where it kind of came from, and all the like. There's debate on who was the first heavy metal band, and so if you're into metal at all, it's kind of interesting, but it is very dated. But the opening montage, just watch that because that will crack you up. That was Patrick and I.
I'm trying to picture it, Marlene. You as a metalhead.
I know.
Now you're this lovely
Right?
yoga, we're off to America. I just, okay. Try.
I know. And it's so funny because when I think about that, like I think, what am I going to think about myself when I'm 53, like when I'm 70, like when I look back at my 50s is like, what will have, what will the transition be? Hopefully I'll have an opportunity to do that.
The beautiful thing is
that would be great.
we don't have to be just one thing. We can be many.
Yeah, 32 flavors,
and
girls.
every phase
32
is
flavors.
interesting and exciting. It's what you want to make of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think
Absolutely.
I've had a mullet, but like
yeah.
I can't remember the name of the singer. It was more of like a 90s, late 80s kind of a mullet thing. Short hair, like this on top, only like bigger, with like a little.
Oh, okay.
Not a Mrs. Brady thing,
I remember
but
that,
it was cooler than.
Well, I have curly. Yeah, I have curly hair and mullets, and me. Oh, it was a lot of pain in the morning trying to get ready. And if it was even remotely misty, I was hooped. So whatever.
Well,
yeah. But speaking of 32 flavors, I was just thinking a little bit about people watching other people who might be like abstract painters, and I know you guys did like a tips last week, right? You guys were doing tips, and the one. Well, I have one to share, and it's just a practice that I've started in the last few years under the beautiful guidance of Penny Lane Shen from Dazed and Confucius.
Like,
do you know Penny Lane Shen?
She's I'm jealous now.
Yeah, she's amazing. Okay, so her company, you guys have to follow her. Dazed and Confucius, Penny Lane Shen, and I met her through Thrive. She's an artist consultant, so not an art consultant. So she works with artists. Okay, so you can book her for a consultation. And you can talk about anything with her. You can talk about the work, which is what I usually talk to her about, the work. But you can also talk to her about like your website, your artist statement, your career, like all like just the whole gamut. Yeah, she's amazing. And one of the things I've learned a lot from Penny Lane. She's incredible. And her partner, her business partner, David Ellingston, he also does consultations with artists. They're both just top notch. And it's just, I can't say enough about the services they offer, but anyways, what I was saying about the 32 flavors is, as an abstract artist, it's so incredible how many times before this practice, before I started doing this, that I would come down here and I feel like I was like reinventing the wheel every time. And, you know, because we can grab like any tool, any color, like we don't have a reference, right? So we can create, which is really great and exciting and really freeing, but holy moly, it's exhausting. And it can be, I think when you're first starting out, it's good because you're trying all different kinds of things. You know, you're trying to figure out, you know, what do you like and what works for you and all those kinds of things. But now my practice, if I was going to give a tip to everybody listening, and maybe other people do this already, is I create kind of like a mood board. It's not like a Pinterest nice looking thing. It's a mess. And I usually pull stuff from, I pull stuff off of the previous mood board, or, you know, whatever board that I still want to continue to explore, and that gets shoved on there. And then, you know, color palette will often be something that gets stuck on there, right? Just different ideas or references, like different painters or artwork that I've seen that I want to lean into, or I'll write like big words on it, like space. Like right now, I really need to create more space in my work. So I create this focus, this board, so that when I'm coming down here to work, a lot of those decisions that normally I would have to sort of make, you know, in the process, it's like I've already kind of made a decision and I'm sticking with this board for now. And it's not forever, because we're restless, we're curious, we're risk takers, so we don't like to be pinned down. But it's just for now, and it's just for this next 6 months or this next group of paintings or whatever. It's like this space I can kind of like lean into that. It's like, no, Marlene, you decided you were going to do this, so just, you know, stick with it. And then within those decisions, those kind of like, I call them sort of boundaries for myself or whatever, then all the freedom comes, right? Because you can then explore within those, but it's like, I kind of create these little rules for myself when I'm working on a new body. And when you were talking about the roller coaster, when I'm in between, when I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, that part, that's terrible. I come down here, I work, you know, I do things, like, but I feel lost.
Somewhere,
you know, I
treading
feel
water somewhere.
skinny. Yeah, I feel I just feel I'm just kind of doing stuff, but I'm just really excited right now because that's actually the premise of the course I'm teaching at Salt Spring, is about building yourself those containers to rest in,
like
and how you go about doing that. Pardon me?
Some of the instructors who I've done workshops with, constraints are a good thing. So, and I think we all have them, right? Like mine is space. I have no space, but that's a constraint that actually, I'm sure on some level is helping me not to just start flailing around and doing any old thing. So creating man-made restraints or natural restraints, I think, is a good thing, right? It's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a game changer for me because, I just feel like I know where to go, or I know where to start, or I know, you know, I can look at the board and go, oh yeah, I forgot I was going to try to add this. Okay, let's add that. Let's see what happens, you know. So that is one of the big tips that I would was hoping to share. And the other one that I learned from, I don't know, I'm a big avid reader, so I can't remember the reference, but I think it was a Stephen King. Stephen King hack.
We can have a whole talk about Stephen King.
Okay?
Let's hear this.
Okay. So I think it was somebody else was describing in a book something they learned from. I don't think I was reading it directly from Stephen King, so I could be wrong. But basically, what he said is that he was talking about sitting at his typewriter, you know, writing, and that he would not write to the point of exhaustion. Like he would write, and then near the ending of his day, if he had like the spark or whatever of an idea, he would write down like some notes or some little reminder of what that was, so that the next morning when he came down with his coffee all ready to go, fresh brain, he could start working right away. He wasn't just sitting there in front of the blank page or sitting there with something going, I don't even know where I was going with this. He's got this spark. And so I do the same thing. I have notes all over the place. Even if it's something really simple, like you wanted to add more white to that corner, or you wanted to draw a line here, or whatever, like just something to kind of get me moving, so that I'm not standing here with my cup of coffee, staring at everything, going,
gives you a jump off.
like I don't
Well,
know. What do I do?
He wrote the
Yeah,
book
it's a
on
jump off
writing,
point.
which is a fascinating read. And worth reading for anyone who likes who creates, or if you have any interest in writing. He wrote a whole book on writing and what's involved with a writing practice.
I'm wondering if I might have heard this or read this in War of Art, which is Stephen Pressfield's book, right, about the creative process, and he's a writer as well. Like maybe I took it from there, which is an excellent book if you haven't read it. Have you guys read it?
I found it a bit aggressive.
Well, it's got the word war in it.
It is. It is. It's definitely not. Yeah. It's there. There's no hand holding. If you want hand holding, do big magic. Elizabeth Gilbert has. Yeah, Elizabeth kind of takes Stephen Pressfield's message and just makes it a little nicer to swallow. But yeah, there's definitely
what I like
no
about
hand holding
that
in
idea
War
of
of Art
Stephen
for
King's,
sure.
though. There's a corollary to that, which is leaving the studio or leaving your creative practice before you're frustrated and upset and annoyed. So leaving on a good note. My husband used to always say this when the kids were little: leave while everyone's still having a good time.
Yes,
that's our rule whenever we went anywhere. We're leaving now. They're all having fun.
Get out of here before it's right. That's easy to do when you can close the door. I have a problem with that because I'll say, okay, I'm done now, because I can feel that, it's like creeping up your back of your head. And then I'll clean my brushes, I'll walk away, and then I'll be in the kitchen and I'll turn my head and go, no, I'm going back in. And so I can't get away from it. So it's really important to be able to do that.
Yeah. I hear you. You need like a little screen or something
do, because
you can
that's
put
the
up so you
problem.
can't
I could
see.
be anywhere and I will look over and go, I think I know what to do. And I'm back in there and I pull out all my stuff again. And
Yeah. I have to physically walk downstairs, and I have a door that sort of separates me, which is nice. Yeah. We're empty nesters, which I heard, Tamara, you are. Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of took this space over when we've been empty nesters for a while. My baby's 24. So, I just keep taking over more and more space. I'm kind of like even eyeing my husband's shop now. It's like, geez, hon. Yeah. Maybe, you go into semi-retirement mode and I can have your concrete floor and not worry about the walls.
My son moved home for the summer, but this will be his last summer at home. And the first thing he did was he moved it. No, he's already told me, because his program that he got accepted into, he's got summers at UBC. So this will be his last summer at home. But the first thing he did was, so my older son moved out in January and his room was next to my studio. I immediately took it over. And then my younger son moved home for the summer, and within a day of being here, he moved a desk, and he's an engineer, so he moved all of his workbench stuff into that room, saying, you don't need this wall, do you? We can share this space. Like, okay, 3 months. I can do it for 3 months.
Yes, I love you, honey. Yeah. You can suck it up, Mom. It'll be fine. But yeah, once you get a hold of that space, there's no returning. And I kind of work down here, and it's an absolute bomb. And then for that art crawl that you were talking about earlier, I clean everything up, shove everything into closets, and make it into like a little kind of gallery, and it feels really fun and very celebratory. And
I think we want to talk. We want to talk about something, don't we, Barb? Because it's already 11:45, and we tend to not go an hour. But you can come back. I always say we've had these great conversations, and when you need to come back, we can talk more. But what we really wanted to talk about was your blind contour project. Canadian women, Canadian artists.
Yeah, for sure.
I could only name 5 of your.
Well, that's why I did it, because I was again, I'll go back to Penny Lane Shen. I did this was probably 2016, maybe. Was doing this little 6-week course. I was coming in, and this is another great tip, you guys. It's not related to, it's related to the whole story, but basically she kind of challenged us all to have something else going on the side, art related, maybe not the medium that you're working in. I know it's really hard for probably a lot of people to hear this because it's so hard even just to carve out time to do your own practice. But just something that's, if you're interested in, or it's just something that you're like, you know, maybe it's like a little bit of embroidery, or like right now I'm playing around with, you know, like printmaking stuff. You know, I've never done that. I was totally self-taught. But at the time, I knew like my drawing skills were always kind of weak, and I thought, well, maybe I'll have a sketchbook and I'll just do a bit of drawing. And so that's how it sort of started. And then I realized I'm not going to stick with this because the drawing to me is just, there's so much in the head going on, and I needed, you know, my life was pretty busy. So I thought, oh, I'll lean into blind contour drawing. I love that, right? So I started doing blind contour drawing, and then I was like trying to figure out a topic to draw. So then I started, I drew Guernica. I drew Guernica, and oh my gosh, what a great way to actually see the painting, right? Because you are seeing you're seeing it in such a different way, like studying it in a different way. And so I was really happy with that. And then the next piece I did was out of my eldest daughter's art history textbook, and it was a George O'Keeffe piece with the skull and the mountain in the background. And again, it was just, you know, just a great way to see how she kind of put things together and really get into the piece. And then I noticed in the textbook that the little write-up about her was kind of like obviously an add-in because it was in a box. I was like, oh, how many more of these women in this textbook are add-ins? And that's really, like, I always knew that there was some discrepancy, and that was when I was with, you know, started working with Thrive, and realized that like the women have just been underrepresented for so many years, decades. And so I thought, well, I'm going to study women artists then, because this is something I could learn. I love art history. So I started doing all these drawings, and I would find bits and pieces of their biography, and then I was posting those blog posts because I was like, well, I need something for my blog, and I might as well share because, you know, I'm doing all this work anyways. And then 6 months into the project, I was like, oh, Marlene, you should do a Canadian artist. Like, hello. Yeah. I've been doing all these artists from all over the place. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, there's Emily Carr.
Maud Lewis.
Right, Maud Lewis. Yeah. The film. That's the only reason I knew her. I've heard the name Anne Savage, but I could not tell you what her work looked like. And I just was so like blown away that I had such little knowledge of the women's shoulders that we stand on. And so I started going down a rabbit hole, and I started drawing and, you know, studying them. And then I was just doing abs. It was the summertime. I was, you know, big canvases rolled out the driveway, and I was doing I usually often do like an acrylic under painting. So I was doing that, and I thought, oh, these blind contour marks are so great. Like, I asked Penny Lane Chan, I just did this one where I used a reference from Emily Carr. No one's going to know because I'll be painting over it. And it just sort of started snowballing from there. And when her and I did a consult, I showed her, look, I'm doing my homework, you know, a big scale or whatever. Yeah. And she's like, keep going. I don't know what's happening here, but just keep going. I'm like, no, but I feel like I'm copying. She's like, no, it's an homage. And then that's where the blind contour really became a huge part of it, because I wanted to sort of abstract their work, right? And make sure that it had my mark making and my voice. And yeah, all the colors, I ended up making the whole 32 pieces, all had sort of similar color palette. It was a huge project, you guys. It was amazing. I learned so much. I traveled in the province for 2 years with that show. I built a whole website on it called herartstory.com. So if you're interested to learn about Canadian painters, go there.
The biographies are wonderful.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
The stories that you wrote about them. I mean, I was sitting.
I had help. I'm not a writer, so I had a writer, prof, and a writer. I hired her to help me, Jillian Bright, and she's amazing. Because I knew that was would be a stumbling block for me.
Stories, but and then I always
incredible.
When they died. Right. I didn't get through all of them, all the women, but it was just, I don't know. I found it very, very moving to actually read their story and then look at the piece, and just to clarify for anybody who might not know blind contour drawing. You're not looking at the surface you're drawing on. You're just focused on the actual painting, right? And then your hand is moving. You don't see what you're doing.
And that's why
you're trying to follow it. And you did it
Yeah,
on the large?
and
Yeah.
totally. And then you're doing that on big canvases too, right? So
Yeah,
sometimes a
yeah.
marker would go right off the canvas or whatever. And yeah, things would be all out of proportion. But and then I would start painting it, and then I would get tight.
Cleaning it up a bit.
And then I realized I needed to do blind. Yeah, so I needed to do blind contour on top. So it actually has like
I
two
think the
layers of blind
most
contour.
fascinating thing to me about blind contour,
Yeah.
in that way of doing it, is that you see what you see. Like, what about the painting were you really interested in? Because that's going to just get magnified in your drawing, right? What details did you not pay any attention to? And they're going to be really different from one person to the next.
Was there?
Absolutely. And if you look at the series too, you'll notice that there are bits and pieces. Each painting has a nod to another painting or two within the series. So you'll see like Roland, Prudence Hayward's Roland has flowers on her dress. Well, those flowers came from an interior of a Molly Bobbitt piece. And, so they all have this kind of woven
Was there one
crossover
artist,
in them
one
as well.
female artist that that you just felt such a strong connection to when you went through this whole process?
Oh, that's a really hard, I love them.
Yes.
I fall in love with them. I feel like they're like aunties, I get choked up when I think about Annie Patukuk, because she's my age, and she died in 2016, I believe. Her body was found in the Rideau River in Ottawa. It was terrible. And she was such everything I read about her, she was just such a light, and she really transformed the scene of First Nations, especially in the North. Their version, their art, their expression, she really just painted as it was, both the beauty and the not so nice. So she sort of took it from she really brought it into a very contemporary voice. Daphne O'Dig. Why is Daphne O'Dig not on the top of our tongue? This woman won every Order of Canada. Picasso. I mean, she loved Picasso's work. She was commissioned by the Picasso Museum in France, I believe, but she was one of 4 international artists to do a tribute to him when he passed away. Why is she not? The amount of work that this woman produced is just incredible. So look her up, you guys. She was just
it's that double
there's so
layer.
many. There's so many.
It's the fact that they're women, and women have been underrepresented, but also you have to admit that as Canadians, we're not so good at showcasing our own and celebrating and cheering our own on the world stage.
Well, we know the group is 7, but that's about it.
Well,
really.
Well, we also have we have 11, the painters 11, or 11 painters, or painters 11. So they were our version of the New York school. So there were 9 men and 2 women.
Why do we know the 9th Street women more?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there were 2 women in that group, so go look them up. There's a fabulous book about them as well.
Maud Lewis
amazing
painters.
Me.
And looking at her, that photograph of her holding her brush. If you look at her hand, it's like, it was so riddled with arthritis.
I know.
And there's something about I can't even read about Maud Lewis without getting completely choked up. What a tragic, sad life, but said so much about her internal life. I think you put that in the biography. Yes.
And she created just so much beauty.
She was so prolific. It's amazing how much she made. Yeah,
absolutely. But there are so many women like that. And that's a big driver for me for painting, actually, really, is I don't know how much time we have left, but basically in a nutshell, my grandmother, my dad's mom, died before I was even born. So he was 17. So my parents they were just dating. And I know from stories that she was a super creative woman, but between basically growing up during World War I, getting married, having babies, raising them during the Great Depression in a very rural, small town, no money. And then there's Second World War. Her husband served in the Second World War as well. My grandfather served in both. and she was so creative, and she was like, she acted in the plays, and she was an amazing storyteller. And I think to myself sometimes when I feel like I'm on that roller coaster, you guys, when I feel like I'm in those down times, like, Marlene, brush it off, just brush it off, because I have the opportunity to do this, and there's just no way. There was just no way, you know, she would have had any kind of opportunity like this. So I kind of like, okay,
you have the
suck it up, princess. Let's
and you
get
have the
back
support.
on that ride.
I mean, you know, we're not where we need to be, I guess, with sort of equality among male and female artists, but go back 60, 70 years. Yeah.
It's a miracle that these women, even if they were from wealthy families, because a lot of times it was only women that were from wealthy families that could pursue this and not be married. You know, that was huge. So even that was just a huge accomplishment to be able to skirt the social norms and to be able to follow their passion.
Yeah,
it's huge.
I'm gonna dive back in. Oh, it's
not to end on a downer. I think
to go into that and to be able to experience that, like, it's like you're physically putting yourself in their shoes in a way and seeing what they're seeing as you're doing those fine contour drawings. You can't not come away from that without something, right?
Yeah, it was, and then having, you know, the galleries say yes to show them, and then going to these places and doing artist talks and meeting people who might have even, some of them had met these people, you know, like, and just the stories and the connection. And it was just a very powerful couple of years there for me, for sure. And
you made a difference. You made a difference, and you helped to spread their stories. That's huge. That's huge.
It is.
Thank you.
I'll share the link to that in your replay, so people can take a look at that work and read biographies. And
so worth looking.
Does anybody else have any questions for me before we run out of time? Yeah, we're running out of time.
We'll have you
come back. It's still fun and nobody's crying.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I do mean it. Please come visit. And anybody who's listening, if they do have any questions, we don't get to them, just send me a message or whatever. I'm happy to connect. And I'm off to Salt Spring this weekend.
In the next few hours.
Oh, that'd be
Marnie,
so
if
much
you
fun.
want a non-artist,
that'd be so much fun to have
although
someone
Marnie
drop in
can
last
draw
minute.
little flowers. Marnie, you should sign up for this Salt Spring Island course, and then tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it's basically, it's going to be like, we're going to have a lot of fun playing. We're going to do a lot of playing in order for us to figure out what we want to kind of have as containers. We really need to do some exploring in and around that. And then, so it's not like there's no pressure to come out with a finished piece. We're not following along, and, you know, you're not going to have you're going to have free time. So maybe you will make progress on a piece, but it's not really about that. It's about letting go of outcome.
She's so close. She just has to hop on the ferry to get out.
There
and
you
go.
Like
she'll do it
okay.
on my behalf. Tell me what it's like.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much
Super
for your
fun.
time today, Marlene. It was just lovely getting to know you and hearing all of the work that you've done.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can connect in real life.
You will.
Yeah, absolutely. I do mean that, Tamara and Barbara. If you ever make your way out this way, just do. Yep, a million reasons. You can come out, hang out my deck. We can chat and talk.
All right, we got 1 minute left. Get us out here safely.
Thanks everybody for watching. Connect with Marlene.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for doing this, you guys. It's such important community building and connecting everyone. I really wanted to thank you for not only hosting me, but and offering this opportunity to me, but also just for everyone else, because it's so important to find your people.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye-bye, Sam.
Great. Thank you.